from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this, and we appreciate your endurance, Mr. Borofsky. I wanted to just state for the record that at least this member and many of the people she represents believe that this is the largest transfer of wealth in American history that we've ever seen, from those whose equity has been moved to Wall Street institutions that now have become even more concentrated as a result of what has occurred with the meltdown in the financial sector. And I just wanted to, again, share information. It's interesting to me that some of the companies like BlackRock that are involved in the resolution are headed by individuals who were heavily involved formally when they headed other companies in inventing the subprime instrument itself. And we don't know where they did all of their handiwork necessarily, but I find it very interesting that then now the federal government rewards them in very non-transparent processes. And I've said to myself, could they well be handling paper that they invented and trafficked 10 years ago or 15 years ago? The derivative instrument itself, I understand, was heavily influenced by a gentleman that is now the vice chair of PNC. And at our home in Ohio, I've just received a notice that our certificate of deposit that has been with National City Bank come this November is going to be transferred to PNC. I don't want PNC owning our meager assets. That isn't my choice. And yet I see this having an impact. Ohio now is only left with 3 money center banks. National City's disappearing. And I see this power gravitating elsewhere to the very people who caused this problem in the first place. One of my questions really has to do with Freddie Mac. And I could concentrate on Fannie Mae and FHA because basically what's happened is all the bad paper is being dumped on the taxpayer, as you've well noted in your report, in different ways, putting it here, here, and every place else in the federal government, so it's not easily traceable. But if one looks at Freddie Mac, which is central in terms of being a dumpster as well as an enabler during the 1990s. Let me just ask you why, when I looked at your report, I couldn't find the word Freddie Mac. Why have Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae's paper been hidden behind the walls of Oz over at the Federal Reserve? Do you have any role at all in unwinding the role of Freddie Mac in all of this going back into the 90s?
We don't have jurisdiction over Freddie Mac in any aspect other than the fact that Treasury has hired them as a financial agent to help do compliance for the mortgage modification program. But otherwise, because other than that, since Freddie Mac is not involved in TARP specifically, we don't have jurisdiction over them.
I don't know if you're aware of this or if the public is aware of this, but Freddie Mac had over $500 million of fines placed on it already for fraudulent activity. And the fact is that they had, during the heyday of their nefarious activity, blown up profits over 30% on their books. They underestimated risk, and they've begun to pay a heavy price for that. I am very interested in your opinion as an auditor. Do you find it rather interesting that we can't get at that paper, even though the American people are the recipient of all the mistakes? Our mortgages aren't being worked out at the local level. J.P. Morgan Chase is the worst forecloser in my district, including through one of its affiliates called Plymouth, all right? And yet they can dump their paper, and theoretically, a lot of it moved through Freddie and Fannie, and yet behind these walls of the Fed, we can't get at that. And so I'm saying to myself, as I look at a capable individual like yourself and your staff, you're never going to get at the truth, because they divided up the turf in such a way that you can never tell us the whole. How do you respond to that concern of mine? How do we get the whole truth?
I mean, I think that it should be no surprise at this point that I agree wholeheartedly that more transparency is better than less, that the more information that is out there for policymakers and the American people, the better. Because it's not related to a TARP program, it's outside of our scope and our jurisdiction.
But you're saying it's unrelated, yet the Fed has just hired, I believe, BlackRock to help to resolve, whatever that means, the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae paper. And let me just quote from the Washington Post. Freddie Mac's alleged manipulation and accounting errors caused it to understate profit by 30.5% in 2000 and 42.9% in 2002, and to overstate profit by 23.9% in 2001. These manipulations include transactions that shifted windfall earnings into later periods when it might have been hard for the company to meet Wall Street expectations. My point is, I don't see how we can know the whole truth, and this troubles me, Mr. Chairman, because even the Seeger report today, SIGTARP report today, is so, there's so many agencies. It's like they've divvied us up into 1,000 pieces, just like they did the derivatives, so we can never know the truth. How do we get our arms around the whole? How do we do that? Can you think about that?
I think that the question is best addressed to the Inspector General for the Federal Reserve, as well as the Inspector General for HFA, excuse me, it's a long morning, FHFA, who oversees the conservatorship of Fannie and Freddie, and they would be in a better position, since these things are under their jurisdiction, to help you find the answers.
From a federal government standpoint, are you disallowed from working together?
Oh, no, we do coordinate together. Those Inspector Generals are both on part of my TARP IG Council, because they do have actions that impact the TARP, and I'm part of the Financial Regulatory IG Council, and we do talk and do coordinate with one another where our interests intersect. Here, this is sort of apart from the TARP program, so I don't really have an ability to go in and look at that information.
The gentlewoman's time has expired, but I think she makes a great case as to why the Inspector General should have independence. And I agree, when there's $23.7 trillion is at stake, I think that it's important that we make certain that they are independent. Let me thank you, Mr. Borowski, for your testimony, and I appreciate the interest of the members who attended today's hearing. Earnings at the largest bank and the bank holding companies such as J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs are up, yet lending remains down. It is unacceptable that profits go up while lending goes down. The taxpayers have invested very large amounts of money in these banks, but what have we gotten in return? It remains unclear. The taxpayers deserve to know how their tax dollars are being spent. The Treasury Department needs to publish full and detailed information on the use of TARP funds and publish the value of TARP portfolio on a monthly basis. They have that information, and they should make it public. Moreover, Treasury also requires the largest banks to file monthly reports showing the dollar value of their new lending. That should be made public also. If Treasury does not put this information up on its website, this committee will. And if Treasury does not turn over this information voluntarily, Secretary Geithner will be brought before the committee to explain why not. What we have heard today convinces me that one of the best things Congress did when it created the TARP was to also create the Special Inspector General to oversee TARP spending. I can now understand why the Treasury Department would like to rein in SIGTARP, but we are not going to let that happen. You've heard from the members on this committee today in terms of their commitment. Again, I thank our witness, Mr. Borowski. Finally, please let the record demonstrate my submission of a binder with documents relating to this hearing. Without objections, I enter this binder into the committee records. And without objection, the committee stand adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Borowski, for your time and the information that you shared with us. Thank you.